7.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Jeff Dudas from underwatertimes.com.
Yeah, over in Miami, Jeff Dudas joining us. Hello, Jeff.
How you doing, Wammo?
Good. And the first story that we're talking about this morning doesn't really sound so much as underwater, because we're talking an insect that makes a very loud noise.
This is actually a waterborne insect. It's called the water boatman. And I've actually seen these, and they've shown up in my pool.
Huh.
But scientists started studying these insects, and they discovered that they make some of the loudest noises of any animal, especially for its size. So they're calling it sort of the world's noisiest insect.
And what does it look like?
It's probably about as big as the tip of your finger. It's kind of a skinny, flat animal, and has two little appendages on its side, and it just sort of skims around the surface of the water.
And does it bite humans at all?
I don't think. I know they've chased. I mean, I've been in the water with these things, so which I believe is a similar insect, but didn't hear the noise. And evidently, the noise they make it's almost 100 decibels, which a freight train is like I think it's 80 decibels. An orchestra is like I think right around even louder than an orchestra.
Wow!
So this is like extremely loud noise. And they said if these little insects are in the water, underwater, making this noise, that you can actually hear them if you're walking along the side of the bank. So it's quite loud. And what they figured out, which is sort of interesting, is how they make this noise. Is it's actually their penis, which they rub against their sort of abdomen, which has these striations on them, and they sort of rub those two together. Makes this wild noise.
Crikey.
So now they're going to try to figure out, well, how are they actually doing this? How are they scaling this noise so loud, and sort of why, and to see if there's any practical applications for making all this noise.
It's interesting, because I would have thought cicadas would have been the loudest on Earth.
No, these guys are louder, and they stay along with the cicadas. They make all this noise to attract mates. So evidently, it's important to them to make a lot of noise to do that.
Well, it's been a big week for researchers, because they found the loudest insect, but they've also found out how sea urchins actually see.
Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. This is the Swedish researchers were studying sea urchins, and they knew they didn't have eyes, but they also knew that somehow they could sense light. So they started looking at the research, and there's been earlier DNA and genetic testing on the sea urchins, and from that they knew that they had the genes for the development of a retina. So they sort of, at the DNA level, they sort of had the tools to see, but no obvious eyes. They started looking and closer and closer, and what they figured out is their light receptors are on the tip of their spines and at the base of the spine, and all over the body. And so, they sort of came to the realization is, it can see everywhere. Its whole body is like a giant compound eye. It's kind of like a fly where it has all these lenses. Well, that's sort of the sea urchin's whole body is a giant eye.
Quite freaky. So I suppose I guess they'd be able to detect shadows coming over them. So a shadow would be perhaps a predator.
Right. So they can move or head one direction toward the sun or away or stuff. So sort of whatever they need to go in relation to the light, they can evidently figure out or have figured out.
Very, very cool. Well, finally, of course, anyone who's regularly listened to you, Jeff, here on the show would know that there's plenty of smart fish out there, but there's some new research to suggest that fish are, in fact, smarter than what we think.
Yep. We've had stories on octopus using tools, and dolphins and stingrays, and now fish who supposedly are not that smart. They, that's sort of the old saying is that they're not intelligent. Well, they found this one fish, a tusk fish, which is a type of wrasse, and they documented that it would go and pick up a shell and go over to a rock and just bang that shell and bang, bang, bang in these violent motions and basically crack open the shell. And this is sort of like using an anvil. So this is, a primitive tool, but it's been around forever, and so that's what they do. And they noticed there was a giant pile of shells there, so this fish has been doing this for quite some time. but it's sort of one of the first documented cases of a fish actually using a tool.
Huh, there you go. Well, possibly those shell mounds that you can find on land that have been attributed to early human civilization, or maybe we've been attributing it to the wrong place. It could be the little fish.
It could have been a giant fish.
Yeah. Hey, thanks very much, Jeff. All those stories, of course, people can find at underwatertimes.com, a whole lot more there as well, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's 20